Hello everyone, welcome to International Trade Practice class. We're going to cover the chapter 4 and which is the contract of sales. This part of the course will give you an enlightenment on the importance of the documents such as contract of sales to protect you from international business transaction. We have three main objectives for this topic. Let us first identify the function of contract of sales in trading. Second is let us differentiate the different terms and conditions that is included in a contract of goods and sales. And lastly, let us learn the elements of contracts and its importance. So now we're going to discuss in detail what is inside the contract, and somehow we're going to give a glimpse of how we can write a good contract of goods and sales. The coverage of our discussion includes the definition of contract of goods and sales, the parts of the contract, the elements of the contract, its importance, advantages and disadvantages, and particularly how are we going to write the contract. And I'm going to give you some example of contract of goods and sales at the latter part of this discussion. Okay, we mentioned that contract of sale is a legal contract that binds, okay, that connects the buyer and seller legally. Okay, they're going to bind for the exchange of goods and services on agreed value, the right price, right condition of the products, how it will be transported or shipped, what will be the packaging, and all of the description on how the products from the seller will be going to the buyer. In the old times, they don't have a written form of contract. They only do handshake. So once they do a handshake, they call it oral contracts. Okay, so that's how they conduct the dealing of business. But of course, because of various flows, some party or buyer or seller, okay, did not fulfill their duties and responsibilities. Okay, they replace it with sales contract or contract of sales. So everything must be written in a document, and we call it also like a black and white. When we say black and white, it is an agreement with evidence. Okay, whatever you say, whatever you promise, okay, it is written so that in case there will be some problem, okay, you have something to look into or turn into it. Okay, meaning that you could check what you had agreed upon. Contract of sales contains the duties and responsibilities of both party. Okay, so it is for the buyer or the seller or seller to seller or supplier. Okay, so they are in different party. Okay, it clearly state, okay, what could be the responsibilities of buyer and seller. Okay, it is usually governed by statutory law because the contract will become legal when it is being signed by public lawyer, okay, or it will be notarized, okay, by public attorney or lawyer. And it is legal because whatever it is written in the contract, okay, there is a particular law, okay, that you have to follow, okay, according to the your country's law, okay, that is state law. Okay, in every country they have a different kinds of format of law, and then they have the different kind or this description of this contract of sale. Okay, in US they call it Civil Code of Uniform Commercial Code. Okay, in Quebec they call it Civil Code of Quebec. In Muslim countries they call it Islamic law or Sharia. Okay, every country has a different format of contract of sales, and they have the different rules and regulations on how you are going to conduct the business transaction. Okay. Why do we need contract of sales? What are the importance of contract of sales? Number one, it prevents miscommunications. If there will be some agreements, you're just going to take a look in your contract and you will know this is what we agreed upon. So we have to follow what's on the contract. And secondly, it provides details of business transaction, the quantity of the product, the description of the product, how it will be delivered, okay, who will pay for the delivery cost, if there will be an insurance coverage, who will take care of that, who will pay for that, so that every single detail, even if there will be some dispute, how are you going to settle that kind of dispute? And the third importance of contract of sale is it could provide you legal backup if in case that the buyer did not fulfill his responsibility of paying the product. Okay, you can go to the court and you can sue the buyer or the seller. Okay, and you need an evidence. Okay, so the contract will give you a working document. This will be a sort of evidence that you can show to the court, not only with the legal aspect, but of course with the secretarial job. If the accounting needs some statement, if the accounting needs some guidelines on how they're going to pay the supplier or the buyer to release to secure clearance in custom, they need a contract. So this will gives you a working document. That's why contract is very, very important. Okay, you have to remember that once it is being signed by the buyer and the seller plus the lawyer, it will be legal and you can use this as a part of evidences. Okay, what are the general components of contract of goods and sale? If you're going to take a look in different books and online resources, they came in different elements, but I would like to give you just the basic of what you can see inside the contract. Okay, first, in the contract, definitely you could see the parties involved in the contract. When we say the parties, it is the buyer and the seller. Okay, some contracts is like multilateral. Okay, when we say multilateral, it's between more than two parties, but normally the contract of goods and sale, it deals with only buyer and seller. Okay, so in your contract, it includes also the goods or items to be sold. What are you selling? Electronic gadgets, part of an airplane, furnitures, or you manufactured like the packaging material. So it should be written in the contract, including the size, the color, the qualitative description of your product. Okay, and also it includes the price of goods being sold. Do not forget that, because some of the documents or some of the legal cases are a result of not clear statement of price in the contract. And the transfer of ownership, in case that you're going to sell uh, one product to another product, and then it will be transferred to one buyer to another buyer, and then you're going to transfer it to another buyer. Okay, so there will be a transfer of ownership and all of other essential of a valid contract of sale, like the lawful objectives. Okay, the lawful objects, like if there will be some dispute, okay, which applicable law, which courts, what type of arbitration settlement you are going to follow. Okay, and of course, the general description of that, you are doing a contract for what? You agreed to sell and to buy a particular, okay, I already mentioned the description of goods and also the delivery of delivery instruction, how the product will be delivered to the buyer. That's why last chapter we mentioned the Incoterms. Okay, if you are going, you have to write, or you have to follow a particular Incoterms for your guidelines, who will be responsible with a particular task, who will pay the insurance, okay, and who will cover the risks. Okay, so that's why it's very important. Okay, inspection period. Okay, this particular condition in the contract will help the buyer and the seller, okay, to schedule an inspection or evaluation or checking of the conditions of the product. Normally, it is being applied if your product is like machines, okay, for maintenance checkup. Okay, so you have to write this kind of condition. And next is the warranties and guarantees from the seller. If there's some problem or malfunction with the products, okay, how are you going to redo, or how are you going to repair that kind of problem? What will be your conditions? Are you going to exchange it or return it, or replace it with a new product? So that could be the warranties and guarantees. How about the payment details? So this describes the manner of payment in different currency, or are you just going to use the local currency by check per month, within 1 year, or after the product is being sold, or upon the delivery? So those are the different details of payment. Okay, what are the advantages of contract of goods and sales besides its importance? Okay, let us emphasize why we really should use a contract of sales, and what are some of the negative impacts or the negative aspect of using the contract of goods and sales. Okay? In general, of course, the contract of goods and sales will help you minimize risks. Okay, when we say minimize risk, okay, the tendency of having a problem, the tendency of some dispute to arise will become minimized, okay, or in minimum level. Why? Because you already discussed and agreed all of the details of business transaction, and it is written in the contract. That's why it could minimize the risk. If there will be some problem, there will be a guidelines that you have to follow and check. Okay, and contract of goods and sales will provide clarity. Okay, because as I had mentioned, all of the details of the transaction is written in the contract. Okay, so what are the disadvantages of this contract of goods and sale? First is the litigious environment. Okay, you are binded with the local documents signed by the public attorney. Therefore, it is subject for what? For uh, legal processes. If a buyer or a seller is not going to follow what is written on the contract, definitely, okay, you have to face a lawsuit. Okay? When you break what is written in the contract, we call it breach of contract. So if you break the rules and regulation of the contract, okay, you have to face the court. And lastly is it is time and money consuming. It's just a little amount, maybe, I think, because of to safeguard your business transaction, you have to spend a little amount, okay, unless you're going to go in, you're a private lawyer, okay, it would cost a little, much more. But normally, you're just going to ask for the public attorney to notarize your document. I think in my country, it would cost only around $10. Okay, the maximum $10. Okay, so and then if it's depending on the scope of the nature of contract, so it's maybe it's quite bigger. Okay, but nor the last time that I asked the notary public here in Korea about for the legal documents, is we only paid around like $20. Okay, so not that much because they are only going to seal that this contract is legal. Okay. So let's now move on to how are we going to write the contract of goods and sales. It is not difficult because there are a lot of available contracts online, and especially to the public attorney's office or the lawyer, they have all the format of the contract. Okay, so either you're going to adopt it, okay, or adopt international contract of goods and sales, and then you're just going to customize it. Okay, so you write the details or you use the different parts of the contract according to your according to the transaction, or if it is applicable to your business transaction. So you can adopt different forms of contract of goods and sales, or you can you can follow the existing contract in the previous transaction that you have. Next is when you write the contract of goods and sale, that when you decided to customize your own contract, okay, you have to be particular with delivery and payment. Okay, so you have to clearly state, okay, how are you going to deliver the product, or how the buyer is going to get the product, especially in the international trade logistics. So it's a really complex process. So you have to consider the step by step, the requirements and the process of doing shipments in the other country. That is why I am overemphasizing that in your contract you have to write what kind of Incoterms you are going to use, because it will give you a guidelines of who will be responsible in delivering and paying the cost and presenting the documents in the custom. And also the payment, it must be in detail how much, and you have to write also the different description of your product, the quality and the quantity in measurement, the size, the weight, the color, okay, and the particular materials that is being used in the production of the product. Also, when you write the contract of goods and sale, you consider the confidentiality. Okay, make sure there is a term that whatever it is written in the contract must only be within the knowledge of the buyer and the seller and the lawyer's firm. Okay, that's the confidentiality all about. And you have to identify the breach of contract. Okay, if the buyer or the seller is not going to fulfill the duties and responsibilities, okay, what will be the consequences and what law is applicable, so the legalities, you have to take note of that. And also, if there will be some parts of the contract that is not applicable or not void, you practice the severability. It means that only particular condition will not be implemented, but the whole contract will still be honored, or it will be recognized. And you also consider the warranty. How long will be the return and exchange policy? Okay, so what are the coverage of the warranty, the technical aspect, the product itself, or the including the shipping? Okay, so you have to consider that. Okay, so now let's proceed on the specific terms that is written in the contract. I am not saying that all of these terms are in the contract, but depending on the format of the contract that the buyer and seller is going to use. Okay, the first one is normally it's the first part of the contract, the commencement. It covers or it explains the contracted date and when the contract will begin. Okay? When we say whereas clause, it explains the reasons for the executions of the contract, why you are binding yourself to the buyer or the seller. Okay, so if it is a contract of goods and sales, it talks about the buying and selling of goods and services. And some documents do not have this kind of terms in the contract because it will make the contract too long. That's why they omit or they remove this definition, because in legal terms they have a vocabulary of terms that will explain, unless it has like scientific names or there will be some other names that is normally not normally being used in business. Okay, that is definition. And next is the liquidated damages. So this will be the punishment in terms of monetary aspect. Okay, this will be the amount that the offending party should pay in case they did not follow the contract. Liquidated damages. Then the delivery terms, okay, this is the condition in a sales or transportation contract that specifies such thing as the carrier, who will be the carrier, okay, what will be the routing freight, okay, and the charges, the place of delivery, and the time of delivery. So the whole description of delivery. Then the payment terms, how are the buyer and the sellers going to complete the payment, okay, in which particular period of time, okay, and the form of payment, okay, money transfer, local currency, which foreign currency is to be used. Next is the packing or marking, okay, so how the product is going to be pack or how it will be covered. Are you going to use a plastic, a paper, a box, or it will be in like a pallet, like a wood? Okay, so it should be described, especially here in Korea. You have a very particular rules and regulations in labeling and packing of materials. So if it is imported good, so it should have um, Korean description or Korean labels. It must, they call it like a sticker, a Korean sticker. So you have to follow that kind of rule. Okay. Performance ban, also known as contract ban, okay, or this is like a surety ban issued by an insurance company or a bank to guarantee satisfactory completion of a project by a contractor. Okay, so when this is in different forms. Okay, so when I was working in a pharmaceutical company, when we supply medicines in a government institution, hospital, um, our company shows a surety band. It means that we have the capacity in financial aspect to perform our duties. In terms of the buyer side, it will show that the buyer has the capacity to pay the product, okay, during the business transaction. That is the performance band, okay. Default, so this is a failure to fulfill a legal commitment. So when you fail to do the task, or when you did not follow the what is written in the contract, you are doing such breach of contract. Next is the force majeure. Of course, there are some eventualities or happenings in international trading wherein it is not man-made or sometimes unexpected. Okay, so these are some of the superior force or chance occurrence or unavoidable accident. Okay, so when this happen, we call it like force majeure. Like if there will be some uh, storm that that destroy the ship and then affect you, and then your product is being also uh, sunk in the ocean. Okay, that the nature of destruction is, we call it force majeure. Okay, or or the product is being included in the fire, in a ship or plane crash, okay, so those are the unavoidable accident. But in trading, it is a requirement that you have an insurance to cover this kind of unexpected events. Technical inspection, okay, so it is a right, okay, or a privilege for a customer to demand for the seller to inspect the product prior to the delivery or upon the delivery. So it will help the buyer to secure, to detect if there will be some defects in materials or workmanship, okay, in the product. That is technical inspection. Then warranty or guarantee, or a promise which provides assurance by one party to the other party that is specific facts or conditions are true or will happen. And warranty is also like an assurance that if in case there will be a problem that is covered in the warranty certificate or agreement, okay, it will be changed or it will be replaced or it will be returned, okay, within 1 year. So depending on the agreement of the buyer and the seller, okay. Next is the specific specification of the commodity, or it is also known to be the description of the commodity. I also included this one because some contract can use this kind of term, or the specification of the commodity. Patents is very important. The product should be original, the product should be licensed, and the product that you are offering should only be uh, or solely authorized for the consumption and for the distribution of the goods, okay, because you have to check if the seller is really licensed to sell that kind of product, because if it is not, you are going to face some legal matters, okay. So patency, okay, you have to check for the license, okay, especially for the softwares. Okay, so some of the problems in international trading is the counterfeiting. Okay, there are some countries who are imitating a products of other country, and then if you happen to buy it, okay, it's illegal. Okay, it is illegal to buy a counterfeited product. Okay, remember that. Then the governing law, okay, which law should be applicable to the contract, okay. In the general ruling, international commercial chamber of commerce or international arbitration, wherever the transaction happen, okay, that could be the governing law, it will take place, okay. So if the buyer, okay, buy the products in Korea, okay, the governing law will be the Korean law. Okay, if in terms there will be some problem or arbitration settlement, okay, it should be written in the contract on which kind of rules and regulations you are going to follow. Again, it is with the consent of both parties. It is being informed and agreed by the buyer and the seller. Okay, and as I had mentioned, it is a must, okay, that you have to write on how you are going to resolve a problem, either by lex mercatoria or you use the private institution rules and regulations, or you are going to use ad hoc, or you create your own rules and regulations for the dispute resolution. For the last set of our general terms and conditions of business contract, we have the entire agreement, changes, contract validation, signatories, and witness. When we say entire agreement, it's like binding yourself or agreeing, okay, agreements of the buyer and the seller, that they agree whatever is written in the contract. That is entire agreement. Okay, so again, they agree with consent that the buyer and the seller, okay, approve whatever it is written in the contract. Okay, next we have the changes. Okay, if there will be some changes to be undertaken in the contract, okay, normally they don't change the whole contract. They submit another contract and we call it like amendment, okay? Or in organization they call it like a board of resolution, okay? Or there's some amendment if there will be some changes. Okay, they're not going to reprint the contract. No, they are going to attach another contract, another document stating that for a particular section and number of the article or the contract, they are going to make some changes. It should be, again, with the understanding of both parties, the buyer and the seller. Okay, then next is the contract validation. Until when the contract will be effective, or until when the contract should be honored or be implemented. That is the contract validation. And the last one, the contract will not be legal, the contract will not be materialized if it is not being signed by the buyer and the seller, or the witness plus the lawyer. Okay, it must have a lawyer's seal, signature, document number, book number. Okay, so that is the signatories and witness that will make your contract valid and enforceable. So let's try to take a look on the sample of different contracts. So I have two examples here. The sales notes and the exclusive sales contract. A sales note is a memorandum of the subject and terms of sale. Usually, the sales note is given by the broker to a seller or a buyer of goods, stating that certain goods were sold by the broker on account of the seller or the buyer. Okay, sales notes are also known as uh, both notes and sold notes. So you could see in the sales note you have the 11, okay, description or the terms, okay, to be filled in, like commodity description, quantity, unit price, time of shipment, payment, packing, insurance, inspection, shipping sample, and the remarks. So you could also see there the signature here, okay, accepted by, okay, and who is the seller. Okay, so now let's move on to the uh, exclusive sales contract. Okay, exclusive sales contract is another form of contract for selling. Okay, it is mostly in detail. Okay, so you could see the specific duties and responsibilities of the buyer and the seller. So you have there the party A, party B. Okay, so I'm gonna read the first conditions of party A. Grants party B the right of sole distributorship of training suit made of 55% nylon and 45% cotton in the territories of West Germany, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. So you see the specific descriptions of the suit. Okay. And another one for the party B will work to the best of their ability in order to introduce and establish the largest possible sales in the above mentioned territories, and per calendar year, the sales target should exceed 1 million US dollars. So this like giving the rights to distribute or to sell the suit, and there is a quota, so they should need to sell a product more than $1 million per year. So these are the specific example of exclusive sales contract, and so on and so forth. Okay, these are also here. You could see the territory. Okay, the territory covered under agreement is confirmed to the United States of America. Okay, you have to specify, okay, which is the territory or the sales transaction had been done. The merchandise covered under this agreement is confined to staples, tops, yarns, and fabrics of Korean origin, hereafter called merchandise. So it describes the products, say what are the products that are being sold, and the end user agreement shall inform principal of the end user's name and his end use in each case of transactions before agent sells merchandise in territory. That's why it's very important the identification, who will use, who will sell, then including the expenses and a lot more. So you have the trademarks, information and report, the trade terms, okay? They use the latest Incoterms. So if it is being in 2020, the transaction is 2020, they're going to use the 2020 terms. Okay, then the offering and the commission. Okay, so those are the example of solely agreements, solely agency agreements. So this kind of sole agency agreement is the arrangement where a single state agent is appointed to market a property for sale. Okay, so that is included for the included in the contract. So here are another example of contract for the sale of goods, for international. You could see here, as I had mentioned, that there are available template online or even in the office of the lawyer or the public lawyer, wherein you can use and customize. So you just have to ask them, okay? Commonly what you can see there is the commencement, okay, the date and the name of the parties. It's between the buyer or the seller or the name of two person. And also you could see here the product, okay, and the price. Also here you could see the payment on receipt, identification of goods, some of the considerations, okay, what kind of the nature of the transactions, okay, and then between the buyer and the seller and the installment payment clause. Okay, so this is just only a part. Okay, normally it consists of around like 2 to 3 pages, the contract, and professor, some of the contracts have more than 50 pages. Okay, it's not the contract, it is the like the product description and the detail, okay, or the logistic plan or the product description, okay, they just attach it. But for the contract of sale, it is only the short description of what will be the transaction to be undertaken. And here are some of the types of business contracts that you may encounter. But take note that every contract with a different purpose, of course, with the different nature of the transaction. You have there the arbitration agreements, asset purchase agreements, bonus agreements, license, joint venture, shareholder agreement, waiver, voting, merger agreements, manufacturing contract, employment agreement, and a lot more. So a particular contract, okay, with a particular description. Okay, you can see here there also the trade license agreement. So I hope that it is clear to you what is contract of sales and what are the contents, the elements, and the purpose of contract of goods and sales. Take note, contract is a legal document that binds the buyer and the seller or the party. It is illegal because it is signed by the lawyer, and of course you do not have to do not forget to sign, okay, in the contract. If your signature is not there, it will not materialize, it will not work out. So your signature must be written in the contract, okay? And also remember, before you sign the contract, before you ask okay, the lawyer to sign the contract, you have to read it thoroughly. You have to read it very carefully. Okay, why? Because there will once the contract is sealed by the lawyer, okay, it is already official. Unless if there will be some amendment, it will not be taken advantage by the other party. Okay, it can be changed. Okay, so remember to read carefully what is written on the contract so that at the end you're not going to regret of signing a contract by facing some lawsuits, okay, by facing some criminal charges from the other party. Okay, so I hope that everything is clear and that I've given you a full knowledge of what contract of sale is all about. Okay, if you have any further question, just let me know and send me a message, and I'm very much willing to entertain your queries. Thank you, and I'm your professor, Dr. Christine Joy Simpao. Have a nice day, everyone.